I'll never forget the first time I saw that shiny lavender SUV bounce through my corn. It looked like a giant piece of bubblegum tearing across the rows, flattening weeks of work in 30 seconds. I was standing on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the morning sun catch the chrome on her mirrors. Her name was Lila Parson, president of the brand new Meadowcrest HOA next door, and apparently self-appointed queen of the county. She waved like she was driving through her own pasture, not mine. I just stared, too stunned to be mad yet. For a while I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was lost. Maybe her GPS had a stroke. But then it happened again. Same lavender SUV, same careless smile, same 4 p.m. shortcut right through my crops. By the third week, it was like watching a storm roll in that only rained arrogance. My wife Maggie stood at the kitchen window, arms crossed. "She thinks the world's a carpet," she muttered. "Then she's about to find out some carpets are wired," I said, half joking, half not. "See, I'm not the fighting type. I farm dirt, not drama. But you can only watch someone crush your work so many times before something inside you starts to itch." I went down to the hardware store, bought bright red signs, big block letters. Private property. No trespassing. Crop damage is a felony. I even added please at the bottom because my mama raised me to stay polite. I spent all Saturday digging posts, setting them in concrete, stepping back proud. It looked official, solid, like a line no reasonable person would cross. The next Tuesday, I saw her slow down by the first sign. I thought finally maybe she got the message. Then she rolled down her window, looked right at it, and laughed. A sharp, barking laugh that carried clear across the field. Then she hit the gas and plowed an even wider path than before. I could feel my pulse climb as her taillights disappeared into her HOA heaven. That's when I realized it wasn't confusion, it was dominance. She was telling me my property line was just a suggestion, and she didn't take suggestions. That night, Maggie pulled up the county maps on her laptop, her finger tracing the lines like a lawyer. "Look here," she said. "It's all ours, clean and recorded." I nodded, jaw tight. "Then we fight it the right way," she said. "No shotguns, no shouting. We outthink her." And that's how it started, the quiet war of Meadowcrest versus the Jordans. First came the gravel lane. I brought in 10 tons, carved a neat 8-foot strip right along the edge of our land, parallel to the HOA road. Smooth, compacted, perfect for my tractor and any emergency vehicle that needed it. I even put a friendly little sign at the top. "Farm vehicle crossing, thank you for respecting property lines." I was giving her a chance to save face, to pretend she'd misunderstood before. I went to bed that night thinking maybe, just maybe, decency could still work. Next morning, Maggie's voice cut through my sleep. "Eli," she said, "you need to see this." I looked out the window and saw fresh tire tracks carving a muddy scar through the middle of my field, swerving deliberately off the new lane. She hadn't just ignored the path, she'd mocked it. My hands clenched around my coffee mug. I'd played nice. Now I was done. We called the county office, and after 40 minutes of bureaucratic dance, we learned about an old agricultural easement, a relic that meant we couldn't block the access completely. We could maintain it, though. We could manage drainage, irrigation, erosion, as long as a vehicle could theoretically pass. Maggie leaned back, eyes gleaming. "They said nothing about comfort," she whispered. That's when the idea hit. I couldn't put up a gate, but the earth could. The forecast said heavy rain 3 inches overnight. Perfect. I climbed onto my old green tractor as thunder grumbled over the hills. The rain came hard, drumming on the cab roof like impatient fingers. I eased the blade into the ground, shaping shallow dips along her favorite route. Nothing dangerous, just enough to gather every drop of water that fell. The soil here is rich and black, heavy with clay. It drinks slow and holds deep. By the time I finished, the whole stretch looked like a harmless wet patch. Beneath it, though, was a trap of pure physics. When I came back inside, soaked and grinning, Maggie just handed me a towel. "Feel better?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "Tomorrow, maybe." The storm cleared at dawn. The air was sharp and clean puddles everywhere, and that field glistened like glass. Maggie set up a trail camera on a fence post aimed right at the crossing. Around 4 in the afternoon, right on schedule, that lavender Range Rover rolled into view. She slowed, glanced at the gravel lane, then at the open, wet ground. You could almost see the thought bubble over her head. Shortcuts are for winners. She turned the wheel. The first few feet went fine. Then the front tires sank, spinning, flinging black mud high enough to tattoo her car. She hit reverse, nothing. Forward again, worse. In 10 seconds, she was buried to the frame. She opened the door, stepped out, and her designer sneaker vanished up to the ankle. The scream that followed could have rattled windows. She hopped back in furious phone to her ear. "She's calling the cavalry," Maggie whispered beside me, eyes on the screen. Half an hour later, the cavalry arrived, a rust-red tow truck with Duke's 24-hour recovery scrawled on the side. Out stepped a bear of a man, arms like hams, and a beard you could lose tools in. Lila ran up to him, pointing at my field like she'd discovered a crime scene. I walked down to the edge of my gravel lane, calm as a Sunday preacher. "Afternoon," I said. "That area's my property. You can back in from this lane here, nice and solid. Please don't tear up the field." He squinted at me, chewing gum like it owed him money. "Lady says go straight in. So I'm going straight in. You'll sink," I warned. "Your call," he grunted, climbing back into the truck. He hit the gas, and within seconds, the front axle disappeared. The tires spun, digging trenches deep enough to hide fence posts. Water burst up like geysers. Then came the sound. Every farmer dreads a sharp crack, then the hiss of pressurized water. He'd crushed my irrigation line. "Cut the engine," I yelled, sprinting forward. He ignored me, rocking the truck like a bull in quicksand. When I got to his door, banged hard. "You just wrecked thousands of dollars worth of equipment." He looked down, sneering. "Get off my bumper, old man." Then he shoved me one big greasy hand right in the chest. I went down hard, flat on my back in the mud, the taste of iron and dirt in my mouth. I saw him towering over me, laughing, and behind him Lila, with that same smug little smirk. Something broke loose inside me. I got up slow, steady. "You shouldn't have done that," I said, my voice low. He laughed again. That was his second mistake. I drove my shoulder into him hard, years of hay-baling strength behind it. He staggered, winded, slipped, and the mud did the rest. We were wrestling like two pigs in a pen, slipping, cursing, swinging wild. He tried to push my face into the mud, and my hand found the pipe wrench on my belt. I jabbed, not swung, just enough to make him yelp and back off. We froze, breathing hard mud dripping from our hair. Then came the flashing lights. Sheriff's cruiser pulled up, red and blue painting the rain-soaked world. The deputy stepped out, calm as a lake. "All right, gentlemen," he said. "Let's put the tools down." I dropped the wrench with a wet plop. The deputy took one long look at the scene, the stuck SUV, the sunk tow truck, the broken pipe, and sighed. He didn't need a crime drama to tell who started what. While I explained, Maggie appeared from the porch holding her tablet. "Deputy," she said, "we've got video." The trail cam footage showed everything. Lila laughing at the signs cutting through the field, ignoring the lane, and finally calling in her muscle. The deputy's expression didn't change, but I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. He turned to Duke. Did you put your hands on this man? Duke stared at his boots. That was all it took. 10 minutes later, he was cuffed for assault and property damage. Lila got a citation for criminal trespass. Next morning, my field looked like a war zone. Ruts everywhere, irrigation wrecked, rows flattened. I felt sick. But Maggie, steady as bedrock, handed me a clipboard. Document everything she said. We're not victims. We're witnesses. We measured, photographed, filed, printed. She built a binder thicker than a phone book, photos, receipts, soil tests, even the sneaker Lila lost in the mud like a trophy. A week later, the HOA called a special meeting. Lila had filed a complaint claiming I was hostile and unsafe. So we went. The clubhouse was packed, beige walls and gossip thick in the air. Lila stood at the front, polished and pitiful, talking about a dangerous trap set by an unstable farmer. A few neighbors nodded politely. Then Maggie stood silent for a beat and plugged in our projector. Up on the wall, video of Lila's Range Rover rolling past the no trespassing sign. Her laughing. Her veering off the gravel lane. Then the aftermath, the truck, the mud, the damage. You could feel the oxygen leave the room. By the end, people were whispering, then speaking up stories about fines, petty rules, her bullying. One man asked, "What's the fine for criminal trespass?" Madam President laughter rippled through the crowd. Lila's face turned chalk white. The board voted to remove her that night. But the real justice came later. Her insurance denied the claim, calling it intentional off-road trespass. We took her to small claims court. Maggie handed the judge our binder, neat tabs and all. The judge flipped through page after page, then looked over her glasses and said, "Ms. Parson, you've told me a story. The Jordans have shown me the truth." She ruled in our favor, $7,243 and change. 30 days to pay. When the check arrived, I bought new pipe, fresh seed, and one beautiful 16-foot swing gate with a cattle guard built right in. The county signed off. It opens for fire trucks, locks for fools. The day it went up, the wind moved through the field, soft and slow, like the land itself exhaling. We heard Lila sold her house a month later. The lavender SUV vanished from Meadowcrest, and the neighbors started waving again. I don't know if she learned anything, but I did. Boundaries matter. Not just fences and gates, but the kind you draw when you decide what kind of person you're going to be. So tell me what you think. Was I right to let the field fight back, or did I go too far? Drop a comment, let me know where you stand. Because out here, justice doesn't always come from a courtroom. Sometimes it comes from the soil itself.